I realised that including mini song reviews in the Random Thoughts videos are a decent alternative to making dedicated videos about the songs. Earlier in 2025, I tried just that for 5 tracks from Toni Basil, namely Over My Head, Mickey, Spacewalkin' the Dog, Do You Wanna Dance, and Breakaway, but I decided to stop making dedicated song reviews because they didn't do particularly well. And aside from Toni using stock footage of a Class 86 in the music video for Over My Head, the songs don't really have much to do with the railways, if anything. Speaking of Toni, I saw that she shared another Halloween-themed music video on her Facebook page and YouTube channel. This time, it featured footage from the 1990 film Rockula, whose name doesn't roll off the tongue particularly well. I first heard about Rockula in a video from Todd in the Shadows, in which he was talking about Thomas Dolby and his song She Blinded Me with Science. Apparently, Thomas Dolby also had a starring role in Rockula, but I have no interest in watching the film because the horror genre is not my cup of tea at all. In any case, seeing Toni share that music video left me wondering, first a sexy ghost, then a somewhat hot vampire, whatever next? This time, The Palate Cleanser was another song from her self-titled second album of 1983. I would go so far as to say that, in my opinion at least, Suspense is the second best song ever recorded by Toni Basil, only beaten by Over My Head. I like Suspense for a few reasons, including its thumping drum track, crazy synth lines, a shrieking guitar solo that always catches me off guard, and the clever lyrics written by Alan Roy Scott and Brian Short, whoever they are. The story starts with Toni singing about waiting to meet someone on a street corner, presumably late at night, but the man is running 40 minutes late for whatever reason. She thinks she can see him slipping out of the shadows, only for the person to turn out to be a homeless guy wanting a cigarette. Then there's talk in the second pre-chorus about how they got him back in Vienna, but I don't understand what "they" means in this context, nor do I understand what the capital city of Austria has got to do with meeting someone on a street corner in Los Angeles, unless it's a bizarre reference to a certain failed artist with a little moustache. I guess the only thing I don't like about the song is its lack of a third verse, thus leaving the story on a cliffhanger, although that could have been intentional on the songwriter's part for all I know, setting up a story that's built around a mystery and leaving the listener to work it out for themselves. In any case, there is one lyric in particular to which I can relate. It's at the end of the second chorus and goes, "Life is never humdrum, there's always some suspense." And of course, I wasn't even going to attempt to sing that lyric. Suspense has an overall sound that's very typical of new wave or synth-pop music from the early 1980s, but the normal album version is let down by only being 3 minutes and 54 seconds long. Luckily, there's an extended mix that brings the song's length up to a much better 7 minutes. It was one of 4 songs from Toni's 1983 album to be released as a single, but it didn't chart on the Billboard Hot 100, and has remained relatively obscure over the years, especially when compared to Mickey of 1981. I was surprised to find out that it still had a music video of sorts, although it wasn't nearly as elaborate as the Over My Head music video. In any case, I have never watched the Suspense video in full because I don't want to hear a 7-minute epic butchered to a measly 2 minutes and 30 seconds. For anyone wondering why I've been using Metrolink trains as the background footage for this discussion of Toni Basil, it's in reference to the fact that she's based in Los Angeles. As for those NPCs who ended up on the track, you can blame that on Dovetail Games and their shoddy quality control, assuming they have any kind of quality control department. I recently finished watching Season 13 of the Dark Railway series, a show that first got off the ground in 2011. Season 13 is pretty good overall, but there was one ongoing plotline that triggered me somewhat, especially in episode 10 from around the 13-minute mark onwards. It involved a T14 and N15, two 460 steam locomotives from the Southern Railway, and as for why this plotline triggered me, it's because of a borderline embarrassing reason. But fuck it, I'm going to mention it anyway. I hate being reminded of my high school days and all the failures I had in the, for want of a better way to put it, field of romance. I feel weird even just saying the word romance. As much as I long for a partner, I'm held back by my complete lack of self-confidence and various other things that I won't discuss in this video. At this point, I've pretty much lost all hope in ever finding a significant other, to the point where I try to forget about the idea as much as I possibly can because it causes me little more than anger and stress. If, by some miracle, I ever found someone, then I guess one of my anthems would be Bad Love by Eric Clapton, featuring Phil Collins. Of course, Telegraph Road by Dire Straits and Over My Head by Toni Basil would still be the main anthems. To be fair to DDJP, I very much doubt he intended to upset anyone with Mara and a Trip's character development. Same goes for the plotline with Zeke and Karina, for that matter. I'll also give the man credit for being a good writer in general. I especially like the episode in which 257 Squadron is dressed up as Original Condition Eustace and are trying to prank the other engines. The other day, and quite out of the blue, I remembered the Great Western Railway pannier tank engines in Train Simulator. I don't know if there have ever been any freeware panniers, but on the payware scene, the first pannier we got was a, now obsolete, model of the 5700 class that came with the Falmouth branch add-on of 2010. Then there was an updated version of that old model included with Riviera Line in the 50s, a route add-on released in 2015, and more recently, in 2019, Victory Works released a pack that includes the 5400, 5700, 6400, 7400, and 8750 classes. I am aware of the panniers that Precision Locomotive Developments made, but I haven't got that version because A. I'm happy with the older Victory Works panniers, and B. PLD's pack only includes the 5700 and 8750 classes. There's also an expansion pack featuring the unusual 9700 class, but why the 9700s had to be sold separately is anyone's guess. Come to think of it, I'd love to see the 1366 class in TS at some point, although I will admit that that's mainly because I was lucky to see the preserved example, number 1369, in Steam on the South Devon Railway. Incidentally, while Caledonia Works have modelled plenty of Great Western engines for TS at this point, none of them are pannier tanks. Although I'm primarily a railway photographer, I like to document other things like birds, trees, and flowers from time to time. I like cherry blossom trees, but it's a shame that they only flower for around 3 weeks in late September and early October. Meanwhile, one type of bird that I particularly like is the tui, a native New Zealand bird with white feathers on its neck and bluish-green feathers on each side of its body, not to mention a distinctive squawk. For the longest time, I didn't know that tui could fly, until I saw one flying from one tree to another at the Firth Tower Museum near the town of Matamata. Incidentally, I saw these interesting looking birds in early October 2025, but I don't know what species they are. On the subject of animals, I've got a lot of time for cats. The one that lives with us is an especially entertaining character, although she can be a little bit annoying sometimes, especially when she wails for food outside of her normal feeding times. We've had the silver tabby since 2018, at least I think she's a silver tabby, and the funny thing is that, when we went to the shelter, We were intending to adopt a different cat who shared her name with a UK football team and a sugar company with which New Zealanders might be familiar. We didn't choose the silver tabby. The silver tabby chose us, and the rest is history. I once had the idea to write a parody of Toni Basil's Mickey and name it Maggie after our cat, but the idea went nowhere. In the end, I took inspiration from Weird Al Yankovic and wrote lyrics to the same tune as Toni's earlier song Breakaway, recorded in 1966, with the parody being named Runaway because it's about a runaway train. Despite bringing this up, I can't sing for shit, so you won't see me recording the Breakaway parody anytime soon, if ever. I once had this, admittedly rather silly, dream in which Toni Basil came to the Goldfields Railway in Waihi, and we got a photograph together and chatted about her 2 studio albums while going for a cab ride aboard DSC 2338, a 62-year-old diesel shunter that has been a Goldfields resident for 5 years now. In real life, I once saw Toni sharing something about New Zealand, more specifically Maori culture, on her Facebook page, which I considered a pleasant surprise because I wasn't aware of her knowing anything about my country. Incidentally, Mickey was a top 10 hit in this little corner of the world, and despite knowing how unlikely it is, I still hope to meet Toni Basil someday, or, at the very least, for her to watch one of the videos I made about her songs, preferably the videos about Breakaway or Do You Wanna Dance. If she ever comes to New Zealand, I dare say the Goldfields crew would give her a warm welcome. They're a good lot on this line. Come to think of it, I wonder what a locomotive would look like if she was painted in a livery based on Toni's famous cheerleader outfit from the Mickey music video. Train Sim World is in a weird state these days. Despite all the problems spawned from Dovetail's borderline scummy business practices, one of which is their pattern of releasing DLC in a borderline unfinished state, the game can still be fun to play sometimes. Every now and then, I still like to fire up the game and drive a random train on a random route in timetable mode, and after feeling deflated and mighty pissed off over DC 4818 and DBR 1254 not coming to Tauranga, despite what was publicly stated on the GVR's website, simply driving something in Train Sim World 6 can be a breath of fresh air, as opposed to a breath of fresh Squidward. You could say the same about what I saw in Tauranga on the 1st of November 2025.